Hello, I'm Michael Berg. Every year, unclaimed estates worth millions of pounds are handed over to long-lost relatives. For some people, it means a knock on the door they'll never forget.
It came as a complete and utter shock. So I thought, oh, lovely, wonderful, whoopee, £1 million, here we come.
Finding forgotten families is the job of the heir hunters. They use genealogy to locate the next of kin who are in line for an unexpected windfall.
Hi, is it Deborah?
Oh, how much money am I going to get?
I was surprised, very surprised.
Meet up with all of you.
You never know when they might come knocking at your door. Today, I'm at the offices of London-based probate researchers Fraser and Fraser, where the team have been working on an exciting high-value case. But there's one big problem that's getting in the way.
So, Gareth, rather a blank piece of paper. What do you know about this case?
Peter Kelly died in December 2016 in Redditch.
In Worcestershire, yeah.
In Worcestershire. We know he had an interest in a property, so we know that there's some definite value there, and I suspect it's quite a lot of value, possibly in the region of about £400,000, maybe more with other assets included.
And no will?
As far as we know at this stage, no will, and more importantly, no next of kin either.
And his name is Peter Kelly. Well, now, you've got problems here, haven't you?
There's a lot of Peter Kellys out there, and tracking down the right one is, you know, that's key to this case.
A lot of money at stake, though.
This is a competitive case. We know it's got value. Our competitors, they know it's got value as well. So everybody's going to be looking at this.
Got to be smart.
I think you've definitely got to be smart on this one. It's going to be quite a tough case to crack.
The final value of any estate is always a mystery to the heir hunters until all the deceased assets can be found and valued. Today, a house clearance team are visiting Peter's house to look for any information that may be of value to his heirs.
Right. OK, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through this filing cabinet,
okay.
which looks a good option.
And then me and Lewis will start bagging stuff up.
And I'll also go through the paperwork on the table.
Obviously, you want to be keeping your eye out for any deeds or any wills or anything that remotely looks like one.
This is all paperwork relating to his pension. Anything that's relating to him personally, we keep.
The documents that the team have found show that Peter worked as a haulier, running his own business.
Peter Kelly. This was obviously his insurance documents and things for his lorries.
Chatting with the neighbours, the team discovered that Peter's work meant that he had some very unusual living arrangements.
When I spoke to the neighbour, he said that he'd had the house built, but he wasn't living here. He was living at some haulage yard somewhere.
He'd sleep in the van, in the cab. Very often he'd pick people up. I think he wanted some company in that circumstance, so he had hitchhikers and the like, and one or two famous people, Billy Connolly amongst them.
And the last time he backed this lorry in, was he going to go back out the next morning? Or was it like pulled in and he knew that was it? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? It's interesting, really, isn't it?
By searching through documents and talking to neighbours, the team unearthed some clues about Peter's family.
So we're assuming that might be his grandfather, that may be his grandmother, presumably.
But aside from family pictures and documents relating to his business, the team don't find anything more of interest inside.
Nothing of any value, just some small change. That's it, really. Nothing.
The vehicles outside will be sold for scrap, contributing to the final inheritance. In the office in London, the search began, identifying Peter's parents and establishing if he had any brothers and sisters.
What name do you want me to start off with?
Start with Alice.
Alice.
I'm just trying to find the census.
But straight away there was a problem. The neighbours had told them that Peter was born in 1928. But they're struggling to find records that match this information.
We got a discrepancy on the death certificate, which says 1923, but the neighbour's saying about 1928.
Okay.
We need to look into that.
All right, I'll look at that now.
Sinead thought she'd hit a dead end, but after further research, she confirmed that the tip-off from the neighbour was indeed right. The team had found their man.
And we found out that 1928 was correct.
Having located the correct Peter Kelly, Sinead could then find his parents from his birth certificate.
So looking at the certificate, Margaret Kelly actually registered Peter's birth, and she's listed their address, which is in Leeds. So now I can look for siblings, and what I'm going to do is look in that Leeds area.
Sinead made an exciting discovery.
Now that we've found the birth for Peter, we have his mother's maiden name. I managed to find that he had two brothers, Vincent and John.
Now, with two potential heirs, the race is on to find out more details about them. If either of them are alive or had children, they'll be the heirs the team are looking for.
I'm now going to see what happened to them. I'm also going to see what happened to Peter's parents as well.
Sinead was beginning to get a picture of what life was like for Peter when he was younger, growing up with his family on a farm in the village of Shadwell, Yorkshire. But she also discovered that there was sadness in Peter's early life.
I sadly found that his mother passed away when he was in his 20s, which must have been quite a blow for him because he was only a young man still living at home.
Sinead pushes on to try and discover more about Peter's two brothers, John and Vincent.
So Peter had two brothers. One of them was John, and John passed away in 2012. He'd married but didn't have any children, so there were no heirs from that stem.
But research into his other brother, Vincent, looked more promising. Could Sinead be about to uncover an heir?
Vincent's stem initially looked very good. We found his marriage to Adele Rosina in 1956, but unfortunately, Vincent passed away just before Peter in 2016, and him and his wife didn't have any children, so there were no heirs on that stem.
Having drawn a blank on any surviving close family, the team had to cast the net wider to find any aunts and uncles that Peter may have had. Company boss Neil has been looking at his mother's side of the family and mapping out her family tree.
Neil, you're obviously very, very hard at work at this stage. What have you found out so far?
What we've got here is just some of the documents which help build this case. The first one is a birth certificate from Margaret. Margaret, the mother of Peter, mother of the deceased. 10th of September, 1893. And from this, there's a whole raft of information. Starting off with the parents. We know the parents' names, John and Margaret. We've got an occupation for the father, and then a place of residence, or where the father lived at the time.
And what is this going to lead you on to?
Well, the first document is therefore going to be the 1901 census. And if you can read the names on here, we've got John and Margaret, the grandparents of the deceased. We've then got Alice, Maggie and Eliza. Maggie being Margaret, the mother of the deceased, but Alice and Eliza, so we've got two aunts.
Now, what else in this 1901 census is important from your point of view?
We're looking at occupations. The point which helps us tie this into is be confident we're onto the correct family.
The father is a leather dresser, and there's Alice, and she's a shoe machinist. There's a kind of, it's clothing manufacturer, isn't it?
Yeah. If we expand the picture even further, and we now look at the paternal side, the father's side of the family, the Kelly side, and we look at the occupations, this is the 1911 census.
10 years later,
10 years later, but for the Kelly family. And if we look at their occupations...
Yeah. Dressmaker, dressmaker. So they're all in the rag trade, and they're all in and around Leeds, actually in Leeds.
There are enclaves of the country which specialise in different occupations, and Leeds is where they make clothes.
And how does that help you?
We're not covering the whole of the United Kingdom anymore. We're covering Leeds.
But still a lot to do.
A lot to do.
As the team found Kelly after Kelly in Leeds, who all worked in the rag trade, they could be fairly certain they'd found the correct people.
Joe?
The problem was there were now so many of them, and time was running out to track them all down.
On this case, we really had our work cut out for us. One, because we had so many heirs to find, and also that we had a common surname of Kelly.
Sometimes the heir hunters take on cases that, on the surface, don't appear to be worth a fortune. But often there are hidden treasures and unexpected revelations in the search for heirs. The team at Finders have taken on a case with an uncertain outcome. The estate of 85-year-old Ivy Henshall.
It's come through from the council, so we've got quite a lot of info, actually. This case was referred to us by the local authority dealing with Ivy Henshall in order to try and find beneficiaries to her estate.
The case file came with some important information about her family and that the estate was worth over £5,000.
So on the face of it, this case, £5,000, it's not one of the bigger cases that we've ever worked on, but you never know, looking at people's occupations, any potential assets. All it would take is one expensive vase or collectible item to be transferred into cash, and then the family could be in for a big windfall.
Ivy Henshall was born in Stoke-on-Trent in 1931 and lived at home with her mother before dying at the age of 85. Her neighbours recall a proud lady with a taste for the past, who'd lived on the street for longer than anyone could remember.
We believe Ivy lived here well over 80 years. Ivy, very independent lady. You always seem to see her in the same dress, cardigan. I can remember once walking past and she said, "Oh, I've just been doing a little bit of decorating. Would you want to come in and have a look?" And of course you say, "Oh, yes, of course, let me see what you've been doing, Ivy." It was like walking back into the past, 1940s. But so you'd say, "Oh, yes, Ivy, that's wonderful. You've really done a nice job there."
And Alan isn't the only neighbour who knew Ivy to be house-proud.
I've lived in Sefton Street for 66 years. I've known Ivy since I've lived in this street, and she was a nice lady. She kept herself to herself. She was quiet, and she just spoke when we saw one another. I went into Ivy's house 2 or 3 times, and it was always nice and clean. It was spotless, just like herself. When Ivy passed away, it was a bit of a shock, because she's always been there.
They may not have known Ivy well, but all the neighbours knew that she had once worked in the local factories.
I believe she did work in the pottery industry, but she never told me what she actually did.
And in all the time they knew this quiet, sweet lady, her neighbours learned very little about her family.
I think she doted on her parents. She had photographs each side of the fire. I didn't know she had any other family. Not at all. No, I never saw anyone visiting. No friends, no family, just neighbours.
Ivy never owned her own home, and so far only £5,000 has been discovered from her savings accounts.
Could you just send me a line on this case?
But hopeful of uncovering more assets to increase the value of the estate, Ryan's team got stuck in searching for family, and immediately researcher Camilla spotted something interesting.
When we initially looked at Ivy's death certificate, we saw that she was obviously a spinster, but also that she worked in the pottery industry. She was classed as retired, but obviously this was on her death certificate, so it was obviously quite an important part of her life.
Camilla took the next step of looking for any brothers or sisters that Ivy may have had.
From looking at Ivy's birth certificate, we can see that her father is William Henshall and her mother is Florence May Henshall, formerly Corbett. Thankfully, Henshall and Corbett are quite unusual surnames as a combination, so we started researching as to whether or not there were any births between a Henshall and a Corbett. From searching online, we could see that Ivy was the only birth between these surnames, so there was no possibility of any brothers or sisters.
So no heirs to be found there. But it was Ivy's father who next caught the team's attention.
She's an only child. Obviously, her dad passed away when she was very young.
William died at the age of 34, we believe in an accident, so this would have been quite tragic for the family. And obviously, Ivy would have only been 4 years old herself.
The tragic death of Ivy's father at an early age meant there was a possibility her mother could have remarried and gone on to have more children. But Camilla found the evidence she needed to confirm that this wasn't the case.
From the records, Florence is a widow living with her only child, Ivy. She then goes on to pass away, still under the name Florence Henshall, so it looks like she never remarried and obviously stayed a widow for the rest of her life.
With no near kin to inherit Ivy's estate, the team had to shift focus and move the search back a generation to look for any of Ivy's aunts and uncles. Beginning on Ivy's father's side of the family, Camilla made a discovery that could seriously hinder their search for heirs.
We were able to see that William Henshall actually didn't have a father listed on his birth certificate. The only parent he had listed was his mother, Sarah Annie Henshall.
Although Ivy's father, William, was born illegitimately, it was still possible his mother, Sarah Annie, may have had more children.
Any siblings would be considered half-blood siblings, and them or their descendants would only be entitled to inherit should there be no full-bloods on the other side of the family.
This meant the most entitled heirs would be on Ivy's mother's side of the family. Camilla began the search.
Our first step for researching into the maternal side of the family was locating a birth record for Ivy's mother, Florence. We found a birth record for Florence May Corbett, born 1901, and we realised that her parents were John Corbett and Mary Jane Brownsword.
Having established who Ivy's maternal grandparents were, Camilla turned to the 1911 census, hoping to find their children.
It shows Florence with her parents and also two siblings, Arthur and Emily. It shows us that there were 3 births by the 1911 between John and Mary, and that all 3 had survived.
Having found both an aunt and an uncle of Ivy's, Camilla also came across a familiar theme.
When researching into the family tree, we noticed that a lot of the maternal family were in the pottery industry. For example, on John Corbett's marriage to Mary Jane Brownsword, he lists his occupation as a painter and gilder.
In fact, at least 4 generations of Ivy Henshall's family had worked in Stoke-on-Trent's prominent pottery industry.
Stoke-on-Trent is known as the Potteries because it's the British centre of pottery making. It made everything from tableware, cups and saucers, plates, things you'd have at home, but also huge amounts of tiles, roofing tiles and bricks, teapots, you name it. If it was made out of pottery, Stoke made it.
And the potteries were a lifeline for local people.
The pottery industry was a major employer. It was very common for whole generations of families to work in the pottery industry, possibly in the same factory.
Ivy's grandfather, John Corbett, played an important role at the pottery where he worked.
John was a painter and gilder, and painting means something quite particular. It's decorating glazed pottery. It is perhaps quite unusual that it's a man rather than a woman. Quite often, the most prestigious work was work that men did.
But the realities of life in the potteries was likely to have been hard for Ivy and her relatives.
The work would have been tough. It would have been long hours doing repetitive work, day in, day out, 6 days a week.
Despite poor conditions, it remained a popular place to work.
Pay could be relatively good if you managed to maintain full-time employment. But quite often, how much work was available depended on whether the factory had orders. So it might be good pay in the good times.
In London, the team now had records for Ivy's maternal family. The search was on to see if either her Uncle Arthur or Aunt Emily had any children who could be Ivy's heirs.
Our research really became quite difficult when we started looking into the line of Emily Corbett. She had one child called Irene. However, when we reached Irene, she disappeared off the records.
Emily had married a Leonard Bentley in 1927 and had Irene in April 1930. But after that, the trail suddenly ran cold. It was a disaster. With Ivy's cousin vanishing, the hunt for heirs had ground to a sudden halt.
We had no idea where she could be, whether that was England or out of the country completely.
With Ivy's cousin disappearing without recorded trace, the hunt was potentially no closer to discovering heirs.
We had to start considering that she wasn't in the Stoke-on-Trent area anymore. Obviously, we didn't have any idea where she ended up, and by speaking to family members, they were only able to tell us that she just moved out the area. So this wasn't overly helpful for where she could possibly have ended up.
Every year in Britain, thousands of ordinary people get an unexpected knock on the door from heir hunters.
Things like this don't happen all the time, do they?
Over the years, the heir hunters have given fortunes to the heirs that they find. As well as the unexpected windfalls, they also reunite relatives.
I have got relatives out there that I didn't know anything about.
There are still hundreds of estates left unclaimed. Listen carefully for the names. If you recognise yours, then one of them could rightfully belong to you. Today, we've got details of 2 estates on the Government Legal Department's unclaimed estates list. The first case on the list is Alice May McClerney. Alice died on the 14th of October 1987 in Jarrow, South Tyneside, aged 86. Alice married Peter McClerney on the 9th of April 1928 in South Shields. She was born in Jarrow in 1901 and her maiden name was Greg. Perhaps you're part of Alice's birth family of Greg. Could you be the person the heir hunters are looking for? The next case is Rose Lillian Angel, who died on the 5th of November 1997 in Hammersmith, London, aged 74. Rose was born on the 14th of January 1923 in Lewisham, London. The rich and ancient history of the Angel family name dates back to the time of the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. Could you be descended from these ancient lines? If so, the windfall could be coming your way. At Fraser & Fraser in London, Gareth Langford and his team are looking for heirs in the case of Peter Kelly, whose high-value estate is worth at least £400,000.
He and his brother, his older brother, had a haulage company.
Time is running out to track down the heirs to Peter's estate, but the team have made an important discovery. Peter hailed from a family in Leeds, many of whom had worked in the major Leeds industry of the time, clothing manufacturing.
On Peter's father's side of the family, the paternal grandparents were a Michael Kelly, who was a draper, who married a Janet Ingram.
And with many of Peter's aunts and uncles also found to be working in the rag trade, the team had been able to cross-reference the common Kelly name with the family occupations to check that they had the right people.
Michael Kelly was a furious manager, and his aunts Rose and Janet were dressmakers.
At the turn of the century, when Peter's family were working in Leeds, clothing manufacturing was one of the most important industries in the UK.
Practically half of all working people in Leeds were employed within the tailoring industry or the affiliated industries.
At the time Peter's grandfathers were in the trade, working conditions were extremely poor.
They were in really cramped workshops or maybe working in their own home. They would suffer from eye strain as well if they had to work by candlelight late at night.
But for women like Peter's dressmaking aunts, Rose and Janet, it was a job of choice.
It was better than going into domestic service. And if you were a dressmaker, you would have been able to work from home as well, so you could fit in the job around your other domestic chores.
The work may have been tough, but the Kellys enjoyed steady jobs and reasonable pay. It was thanks to people like them that Leeds became a thriving centre of commerce.
At the height of the industry, which was in the 1940s, up to 1 in 5 men in the UK were clothed in suits that had been made in the city of Leeds. So it really was a boom time for the city.
But in the early 20th century, the outbreak of the First World War meant that cotton could no longer be exported to foreign markets, and countries like Japan and China set up their own factories, moving clothing production away from cities like Leeds and taking people's jobs with them. And with fewer jobs available for the people of Leeds, entire families who had previously worked together in the factories split up and moved away in order to make a living. And for the heir hunters, it makes Peter's relatives much harder to trace. Back at Fraser & Fraser, research was continuing with all the focus on the rag trade worker uncle and aunts on Peter's mother's side of the family.
1886.
Yeah. Sort of around that, give or take a year.
With 5 family lines to look into, the team picked up the pace to see if any of them had gone on to marry and have children of their own. If they did, they could be the heirs the team are looking for.
We try and stick to the Leeds area, because that's sort of where the majority of them are coming out. Peter's aunt Alice went on to marry a William Oldfield, and they married on the 30th of May 1914 in Leeds. They had 2 children, John and Eric. Eric died as a bachelor, but John went on to marry and had 2 children of his own.
This was an exciting lead, and after more digging around, Sinead then discovered that there was a similar story with Peter's aunt Eliza, creating more possibilities of finding an heir.
Peter's aunt Eliza actually married twice, and with her second husband, she was slightly older, so she didn't have any children. But with her first husband, Clifford Cartmel, she had 2 children who both went on to marry and had children of their own.
This was the news everyone had been hoping for. If any of these relatives can be found alive, they'll be Peter's heirs. But with the large family now spread across different parts of the country, tracking them all down in time might not be possible.
Normally we'd work on smaller trees, but because this sort of expanded very quickly, it was quite a rush to get everyone up to date and signed.
Finally, after much hard work, Sinead made an exciting discovery about the family of Peter's aunt Jessie.
Peter's aunt Jessie married a John Corby in 1908, and they had 5 children. Their names were Ethel, Olive, Lillian, John and Kathleen. Jessie's youngest daughter, Kathleen, went on to marry an Eric Bacon and had 2 children.
This was the breakthrough that the team had worked so hard for. One of those children, Trevor Bacon, was tracked down, alive and well, and living not in Leeds, but Staffordshire. Trevor thought he came from a small, tight-knit family and knew all of his relatives well. So hearing from the heir hunters came as a surprise.
The phone call from the heir hunters was a very large shock to me. I'm very interested to find out as much information as I can regarding my mum's side of the family. I feel as I've missed out on family. I'm curious to find out more.
Today, Trevor has journeyed to London to discover the family he never knew.
I'm really excited because there are lots of things about my mum's side of the family that I know nothing about.
He's come to meet Gareth at the office.
Mr. Bacon.
You must be Gareth.
I'm Gareth. Do you want to come down to the library?
Yeah, please.
Brilliant.
I'm curious as to what...
Trevor has been told he has relatives he never knew about, but he has no idea how many of them there are.
So this is the file.
Wow.
See Peter Kelly.
Lots of information.
But the part we start with is the family tree. Just unfold that.
Huge family tree.
And then eventually we get to yourself down right on the right-hand side.
OK.
We also have pictures. OK. Presuming that I think that's Mr. Kelly.
When I arrived today, I hadn't got a clue what to expect. The pictures were amazing. Great that I've actually seen them. I had been told there was a family tree, but I had no idea of the size of it. It's huge.
Peter's mother's family tree had been large, but his father's family was just as big. The team began researching his parents.
Michael and Janet had 10 children in total. However, Peter Henry Kelly died at the age of 3. The 9 other children have their own families.
And from the remaining 9 aunts and uncles, the heir hunters managed to uncover even more heirs.
So on Peter's father's side of the family, we found 12 heirs altogether, but on the maternal side, we had 25. This brought the total number up to 37 heirs.
For Gareth, it's been a fascinating case.
So this estate, it's a big family. Obviously, because there's a lot of beneficiaries, that's going to have quite a dramatic effect on what each individual receives. But fortunately, there's quite a lot of funds on this estate, so everybody will be getting a reasonable amount.
And for heir Trevor, the process of discovering his lost heritage has been an enlightening experience.
For me, it's been an amazing journey. The fact that I've learned of family members that I didn't even know existed. It's not about the financial side of things. It's about knowing what family I have and seeing a family tree.
At heir hunting firm Finders, the team had hit a dead end searching for relatives of Ivy Henshall. Ivy lived in Stoke-on-Trent all her life and died in October 2016, aged 85, leaving no will and with no known next of kin.
Yeah, if it ties them together, yeah. I'll take this for now anyway, I'll leave you with that.
That's great.
So far, Ryan and his team have estimated Ivy's case to be a relatively low-value estate of around £5,000. But they were keeping an open mind to uncovering more assets hidden away, after they discovered that several generations of her family had worked in one of Stoke's most famous trades.
We're dealing with a family that were heavily involved in the pottery industry. I mean, all it would take is one expensive vase or collectible item to be transferred into cash, and then the family could be in for a big windfall.
The team had discovered that Ivy's maternal uncle Arthur and Aunt Emily had both gone on to marry and have children of their own. If the heir hunters could trace them, they could lead to the heirs the team were so desperate to contact.
The dad was illegit, so it's just going to be the maternal side.
But when the team looked into Emily's only child, Irene, they hit a stumbling block. She seemed to vanish from the records.
This is a real problem, isn't it, Camilla?
Yeah.
Why is she so hard to find?
We couldn't find a living record for her. It really did stump us, and we were a bit stuck as to where to go from there.
What do you think happened? What theories did you have?
When we started our research, it seemed to be going quite well. We could find a marriage for her, we could find 2 children. So we thought either she might have remarried and potentially changed her surname and also the surname of her children. But also there was the possibility that she had moved somewhere within the UK, but also outside of the UK.
You've got really to change your plans then, haven't you? Indeed, change your whole approach. How did you go about it?
I think the most important thing was to order her birth certificate.
And this is it?
Yep, that's the certificate.
And there it is, her date of birth, 6th of April 1930, in Etruria. Lovely name in the potteries, isn't it? Irene Bentley. OK, so you've got her birth date and you've got her first name. What then?
We needed to find her death. We couldn't find a death for an Irene Bentley. We did find a death record for an Irene Leyland with that date of birth, but it was in Poole in Dorset.
Poole?
Yeah, so...
That's a long way from the potteries.
Yeah, so we weren't hopeful that it would be the right one. We thought we'd order it. We weren't having much luck with anything else. Get it into the office, and then we can start seeing whether or not it's anything to do with our Irene.
So here it is. Yeah, look, on this death certificate gives her maiden name, and the maiden name is Bentley. Do you all
Just
go
confirmed everything.
yee-haw at that particular stage? I mean, is that the real breakthrough moment?
It really was the breakthrough moment. It just confirmed that we had the right person. We'd found Irene.
On her death certificate, Irene's surname was listed as Leyland, meaning she had indeed remarried.
It meant that we were able to then trace backwards, find out what happened in between Irene going from Bentley to then Leyland. It meant also that we could find her children. We weren't sure how many marriages she'd had at the stage, so we knew that there was potentially quite a few children from each of the marriages.
Now working with Irene's new records, the team discovered that she had in fact married 3 times in total and had children with each husband.
You've got her third husband, and you know her second husband, you know her first husband, you know she has 2 children from the first marriage. How many children did she have? How many potential heirs did she have?
So we had 4 children in total from Irene. Sadly, one had passed away, but that child had gone on to have children herself. So in total, we had 6 heirs who were descending from Irene.
It must be a great feeling when you pin them all down.
It really was, yes.
And here are 2 of those heirs, David and Alan, the children of Irene and her first husband. They were Ivy's first cousins once removed. And there was yet another twist in the tale. They were both found to be living back in Stoke-on-Trent, just like their ancestors generations before.
It was a surprise to me when from finders. Over the years, you lose touch with people.
I wasn't really interested in the inheritance. I was on about the person, and first thing I said to when they contacted me, when did she die? And I was told that she died about a fortnight earlier.
Alan and David remember Ivy from before they moved away with their mother to Dorset.
She was just easygoing, so easygoing. No raised voices, no arguments.
And it wasn't just Ivy that her cousins remembered from their childhood.
The mother and daughter, and they lived together and they did everything together. The houses always seemed to be pretty tidy. They were well dressed themselves, prim and proper.
Yeah.
She's very pretty, just like her mum as well.
But over the years and after the relocation to Dorset, the brothers eventually lost contact with Ivy and her mother.
I think the reason why the situation didn't progress is because of our families. People were moving about different areas. My mum went and lived down in Poole in Dorset, and it was only once, as I ever remember, they actually spoke about Ivy.
Today, the brothers have come to meet Angela Lee at Gladstone Pottery Museum to learn more about their ancestors' roles in Stoke-on-Trent's renowned pottery industry.
Welcome. You're here because 4 generations of your family were pottery workers in this area.
Right.
I can imagine that.
There were hundreds and hundreds of factories, just like this one, which has been saved because it's so typical of the hundreds of factories that you've never heard of.
David and Alan want to see for themselves where their great-great-grandfather used to work.
This is the kiln. This is the inner part,
where the pottery went.
Yes, and it would be all put inside fire clay containers at saggers because this is all coal firing, so it's really smoky, really hot, and you've got to protect the pottery. The pottery goes inside the kiln, and the fires, there's 8 right around the outside, and those would be where the coal was put.
As a fireman, David and Alan's great-great-grandfather, Henry Brownsword, would have had one of the most respected roles at the pottery.
Fireman is almost kind of like a manager role, or to oversee the process. So knowing if it felt like the kiln was cooling a bit, then he would instruct men to, put more coal on that side.
Did he ever do nighttime work? Did he go throughout the day,
it would have been,
or just during the
when
day?
When he was firing, it would have been day and night. He'd be watching and checking and making calculations.
And with many other family members, including Ivy herself, working in the potteries, the pair are keen to discover more.
Your great-grandmother, Mary Jane Brownsword, was a stilt maker, and I don't know if you know what a stilt is.
I've got an idea. It's if you like, peg.
A stilt looked a bit like that. This is quite a big one. During the glossed firing, and for the glaze, it would stick together, so you need to separate it and stop the things joining. So something like the stilt would be used so that you would rest the edges of the plate on there, so minimal contact, minimal mark on the glaze.
Henry's son John, David and Alan's grandfather, had another well-respected job in the industry as a painter and gilder.
I'm a paintress in here, and I'm going to tell you what John Corbett would probably have worked with. These are metal oxide powder colours that I'm working with, and I'm working on unglazed ware. I'm just forming petals here with a brush. That's the general idea.
Lovely, that is. Yeah.
It's very rare as well, I will say, for a gentleman to be a painter and gilder. And I would imagine it would be a very specialised job.
Very talented.
And very talented, yes.
Fascinating.
And it doesn't matter what generation, whether even now or even 1930s, they still had the same amount of skill.
Things are still being done now the same way as they would have been done. So we who work in this understand just what kind of workers your family must have been.
Have you found it interesting?
It certainly is an experience, learning about people that were so close. You didn't know too much about them, but finding out, especially in a place like this where our relatives used to work, inspirational, there's no doubt about it.
Back at Finders, the research into Ivy Henshall's family tree was coming to a close.
So this case was relatively plain sailing for us at the beginning. It was only really at the end we came across a lot of the issues that we dread, changes of names and people moving out of a particular area. In total, we found 9 beneficiaries to this estate. It's worth over £5,000 still, but we're hoping over the coming weeks and months we'll find out an exact figure, and it should actually be a lot higher for the beneficiaries that we found.
And although the hunt hasn't yet uncovered any valuable items left by Ivy's pottery-working ancestors, for David and Alan, the experience has been rewarding nevertheless.
The people who have been our relatives over quite a number of years, it was astounding.
I was really surprised. Relatives that worked in the pottery industry. I never knew. It's been a great day. Been a great day.
Fascinating how in Ivy Henshall's case, all roads led back to Stoke-on-Trent, and a rich family history involved in one of the biggest British industries of the 19th century. So, with another case tied up, where next for the heir hunters? Maybe it could be you getting an unexpected knock at the door. Until next time, goodbye.